I wish everyone knew this about psychology. Some psychologists know this. It's not very well understood. It's not frequently discussed because it's a little bit of a complicated idea. But what is actually controlling your life is probably something that you can't see and largely speaking will be in denial of. So most people are thinking, no, I'm in control of my life. And then when things keep consistently showing up that they don't want, they'll go, oh, I must just be unlucky, or they'll call it self-sabotage or something like that. There is a mechanism inside of all human beings that controls the level of potency they can rise to, let's say. So let's imagine there's a circle and you can be potent and capable within the circle of limitation. And it is a limitation. You can build a business, you can be healthy, you can get married and have kids, but only within this circle of limitation. And what enforces that limitation of whether you can or cannot do the thing that you say you want to do, or you can or cannot avoid the thing that you say you want to avoid, is not you, in the sense that it's not your conscious mind. Broadly speaking, we are governed by largely unconscious forces. And this particular force is like a dark watcher inside of you, and it's controlling what you can and can't do. And when I use the word dark here, I don't mean evil. I mean in the Jungian sense, in the psychoanalytic sense, it's non-conscious. It's not in the light of consciousness. It exists in the dark. Broadly speaking, what Jung would call perhaps away in the shadow. What we all have inside of us is like an onboard control center for what you can and can't do in life. And that onboard control center is programmed mainly in your childhood and somewhat in your adolescence. And then by the time you're 21 and your brain is fully formed, I think your brain fully forms, it's later in men, oddly enough. I think it's 23. By the time you're 23, it's programmed, it's set. What's programming the control center that dictates how far you can go in life and what you can do and what you can't do? So to recap, you have a circle of potency. These are the things you can and can't do. It's governed by a command center. And if you try and go outside of it, it will stop you and you will call that self-sabotage. You go, I was doing really, really well. And then I just had this weird impulse to stop and I stopped for no, or I did something really stupid and ruined it. The command center is that dark watcher. It's observing you from the unconscious and it's enforcing laws. It's enforcing rules. It's enforcing commandments from on high. So the watcher sits above you, watches what you do, and sees how far in your map inside of your circle of potency you're moving. And if you go too far, it will stop you. The watcher is largely operating from the programming of a command center. The command center was programmed by the messages, the experiences, the people, mostly in your early childhood up to age 8, with great potency up until the age of 14, and then with lesser potency from 14 to 23. But still important. The stuff you're carrying inside of you, there's rules by which you live your life unconsciously that you got from high school, that you got from college, that you got from your peer group and your experiences with your peer group when you were 17, 18, 19. It's not all about, pre-verbal psychoanalytic programming before the age of 4. All of these experiences can affect you, but it's a physical issue because your neuroplasticity is still very, very high, relatively speaking, up until the age of 24, 25, and your brain is still literally non-formed up until it's formed. For some people, maybe not. It's formed, but it's not finished. It's not finished developing until the age of 23. As I say, it's later in men than women, but I can't remember exactly what. It's the part of the brain that deals with consequence, which is why tragically we see so many more young men choosing to do very dangerous things like drinking alcohol and driving cars and then taking themselves off the planet at a disproportionate level in terms of gender and age. It's the type of thing younger men do, and it's physical. That part of the brain that processes, if I do this, this will happen, is just not finished developing. And then once it has finished developing, wow, strange coincidence. Those numbers don't disappear. Men are still more risk-taking, generally speaking, than women, the younger they are, but they massively drop off. So it's your brain. Your brain is not fully finished. The messages and the people in the environment and the culture you're in program in the command center, and then the watcher, the dark watcher inside of you, enforces those commandments, enforces those rules, and enforces those laws. So I wish more psychologists, I wish more humans knew this, because it's extremely important. Forget narcissism and narcissistic abuse. A very common psychological problem today: anxiety, ADHD, depression, social anxiety. There are all kinds of therapies with relative degrees of success for dealing with these things, but they should all include this. They should all include this command center that's operating. Who defined the command center? The first person to talk about it was Sigmund Freud, and he defined it as a part of the self that sits over the ego. The ego is me, who I think I am. It's my personality, which comes from the Greek word persona, which was a mask that was worn in Greek theater. It was a mask, and it had a little trumpeting microphone. It was like a primitive mic, so that I could speak and the people at the back could hear me, which is your personality. A mask that allows you to signal to everyone, this is who I am. This is the role I'm playing. That's your personality, the role. Who you want the world to see you as being on the stage, on the theater of life. Above that is another part of you that is sending commandments down to the ego, to the mask, saying, do this, don't do this. You mustn't break that rule. You must follow this rule. In psychoanalytic terms, these are called injunctions. Injunctions it's most frequently found in modern parlance in legal terminology. If I am a judge and I give you an injunction, that's a commandment. Thou shalt, or not enter the city centre at 10 o'clock at night, or thou shalt pay child support. That's effectively a legal injunction. And if you don't, there are consequences. These are typically punishments. Our legal world is a manifestation of our internal moral world. So the judge sits, not in the UK in a crown court, sits above. He sits and judges from on high. So it's the higher functioning part of you that we normally call the conscience, but don't think of it as the conscience, because if you think of it as the conscience, you'll miss some key elements of it. Yes, it is telling you what is right and wrong. Yes, it is telling you what is morally good or not to do, but it's also enforcing a script. The script is what you learned in childhood, and you can learn these things unconsciously. So if your father gave you a script that said, everybody who is rich because they're a cutthroat criminal, and behind every great fortune is a great crime, and you internalize that, and your father's been enforcing it your whole life, you're carrying your father's messaging inside of the control center, and the watcher takes that programming and says, well, I better enforce this. Age 30, you're trying to build a business, and every decision you make is wrong. Every marketing decision you make is crap. Every product development decision you make is wrong. But you're an intelligent and industrious person. You really are. What's happening? The script, the watcher is saying, you are not allowed to do that, because you still hold that script inside of you. You have anxiety and you want to be confident, but your mother implied or told you confident people are arrogant. Confident people are insensitive. Confident people are somehow evil. Here's another interesting thing about this part of the self, this command center that Freud pointed out. It also determines what you must or must not do to qualify as a good person in the watcher's eyes. So we operate and perform with the mask, with the personality, with the persona. We do that trying to convince the internal watcher, I'm a good person, I'm a good person, I'm a good person. Where people have personality disorders, and they're psychopathic and they're narcissistic and so on. All of this is warped. All of this is heavily, heavily damaged. All of this it's like an upside down conscience. Right is wrong. Night is day, up is down. It can get inverted. It can get very, very confused. But even the most evil, psychopathic serial killer still operates by communication from the dark watcher that's inside of them, that's enforcing a script. Even the most brutal, sadistic killers are still being held accountable by the watcher inside of them. Whatever it is, overcoming narcissistic abuse. You may not be allowed to overcome narcissistic abuse. Have you thought about that? That might be outside of your circle of potency. You may be carrying a script that's being enforced that says, no, you're not allowed to overcome narcissistic abuse. You are to be heartbroken and sad and to identify as a victim and a survivor for the rest of your life. That could be your script. If you don't know that and you don't deal with it, all of the therapy you do is not going to work very well. ADHD, depression, name the mental health issue or the thing that you can't do, the thing that frustrates you. You must address the script. You must address the command center and the programming and the enforcement from the dark watcher, dark as in unconscious, as I said in the beginning, that's observing you like the eye of Sauron and is saying, there is your circle of potency. This is how high you can rise and no further. You're not allowed to do that. And then you find when you do try to escape it, suddenly you're crushed by feelings of laziness and apathy. And I don't want to today. I'm going to give it up. You're overcome by feelings of despair or rage or whatever. I claim this is all that part of you saying, don't go outside your limits. Stay within the limits. Obey the injunction. Obey the rules. Where do the rules come from? These are things we internalize into the command center programming throughout childhood, throughout adolescence, and through our culture. There is a chance if you've experienced narcissistic abuse, the narcissistic abuser has hacked and put information into that command center programming that's going to make your life very, very difficult unless it's extracted. There's a chance that any area of your life that you're trying to develop in and can't, it's because of this command center programming that you can't move forward. You must be able to address these things directly. If the issue is narcissistic abuse and you have an injunction that says you're not allowed to heal, if the issue is narcissistic abuse and what you have is the narcissist's voice is inside of you saying you mustn't go further than that, you can never love again, you can never have this thing that you wanted or dreamed of ever again, we must address that. If that is something that interests you, shadow integration and bringing the unconscious parts of us that are affecting our lives to light, I have a course for you. There's a course for overcoming narcissistic abuse by deprogramming. I use the term deprogramming in the title with the assumption that narcissistic abuse across time is a kind of brainwashing and you have to undo that brainwashing. It's effectively a cult-like form of brainwashing. If you want to get that course, it's available now from richardgrannon.com. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Thank you.